welcome to Impactful Innovation with Commercis, the show that lifts the curtain on the leading role that technology plays on the world stage. I'm David McClelland, and in our last episode, we dipped our toes into cybersecurity, looking at how bad actors are launching their attacks now and how they might in the future, and the role of the human firewall in cyber defense. And our security chat continues this week, but multiplied by the power of artificial intelligence. We're going to be looking at how the world's first AI-powered cognitive city is employing AI-powered cyber defense to keep it safe, as well as some other ways in which AI and AI agents are helping in the ongoing cyber fight. And back on the sofa for round two of that fight, it's CEO for Commercis Technology and Intelligence, Vipul Narula. Vipul, good to see you again.
Same here. Thanks for inviting.
Now, I said above in the intro that we were looking at cybersecurity today, quite deliberately powered or multiplied by the power of AI. Now, there is actually a formula that I know you've been working on to help us understand where we sit, where we might be as regards cyber risk. Enlighten me.
You've hit the nail on its head. And I've been thinking about, in the current space of digital transformation, digital reality and compute space, how do you define the new risk? And I came up with this model, and I believe cyber risk can be modeled as a factor of these three key things. I call them DAC. There's a fourth one as well, which we'll talk in a minute. But let's talk about the DAC, which fundamentally define your threat landscape. D stands for data. And by data, I mean how big is your volume of data, your criticality, confidentiality, the whole CIA trait of security which applies to data. A, in this case, stands for AI. And when I say AI, we know this whole episode is about AI and future of AI, but we are talking about how smart are your AI models? Do you have the right guardrails? Are these fully autonomous models? A lot of factors in the AI itself. And the last one is the C as a factor, and that applies for compute power. So how much compute power can you apply to the data and to the AI models? How much compute is on the cloud? How decentralized is your compute power? So when you start adding DAC and times D times A times C, you start getting a number which is your threat landscape. This is my threat landscape if not properly controlled. That is where the fourth element comes in, which is S, which is a factor of S. DAC to the factor of S means your cyber maturity. So imagine your cyber maturity is extremely poor. That means you score a 1 out of 10 means 10 on the extreme bad cyber maturity. You're factoring A times the DAC to the factor of 10. A very good cyber maturity means that your factor is amazingly small. So yes, there is a way to identify your risk exposure, your threat landscape, and that's why I say DAC to the factor of S defines the new fundamental way in which threat has to be measured globally.
Vipul, that's a fascinating formula, and there's lots of different ways I think we can refactor that, but we'll do that after we've heard from our down-the-line contributors today. Underway right now in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is an ambitious project to build an autonomous AI-powered cognitive city. But with digital deep in its DNA and owners with equally deep pockets, it's no surprise that this cognitive city is already being targeted by hacking groups. I spoke with Nasser Bostan, who's been building the nerve center of this digital city, and began by asking him about NEOM and its vision.
NEOM is a city in Saudi Arabia, northwest corner, the desert of Tabuk. The vision is for it to become a linear city. You've probably seen the pictures of this sort of 170 kilometer long sort of mirrored walled city. But more pertinently, from a technical perspective, it's also designed to be the world's first fully AI-powered city. So that is a citywide operating system that looks after all aspects of daily life, powered by a single AI that's able to utilize that operating system to effectively run the city. So something that's never been done before, and something that's extremely exciting.
a city-wide operating system. And I think most of us are familiar with operating systems on computing devices, mobile devices, and so on. But to apply that to an entire city, it asks a lot of questions, I think. Do you have any examples of case studies, I guess, about how, as a citizen, this city OS might intervene and hopefully improve my day-to-day experience there?
Yeah, for example, visitors to the city, whether you're a resident returning or whether you're a first-time visitor, the AI would, be aware of your arrival time at the NEOM airport. It would be able to know you because of facial recognition, and it would basically fully automate your entire arrivals process. So for everything from automated immigration without the need for a passport to having already pre-booked your transportation and your transportation is ready and waiting for you, to your luggage automatically being transported to the hotel that you're booked into, and for the hotel to have been notified that you are due to arrive, and that the room has already been made available and configured to exactly your specifications, because they know what you like and what you don't like. So that was sort of one of the early use cases that we were trying to model out there. But there was a million others, everything from health. So, the AI is able to, through wearable devices, able to track and monitor the health of individuals within the city and be able to sort of proactively predict health interventions and this kind of thing. So yeah, there was millions of use cases, but and one of the ones I was most excited about, actually, because this really spoke to the whole integration piece, was coordinated emergency response services. So that most cities have a very uncoordinated response to major incidents or incidents generally. And so what this AI was going to be able to do is in major incidents, be able to take control effectively, centralize the entire emergency response across fire, police, ambulance services, health services, and basically coordinate the entire thing. So yeah, amazing stuff, really.
Lots of different use cases, lots of different applications of the technology there, and certainly how you described the visitor experience. Really what it is, it's a lot of automation. It's a lot of joining things together, removing the friction or the potential disconnects between modes of transport or different activities and so on. Driving all of that, of course, is connectivity. A lot of, sensor data when we're talking about the real world here, which must itself require a lot of AI, machine learning, and so on, just to manage the vast volumes of data from all of the instrumentation that you would have around a vast city like this.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest challenge that we faced. We had estimated, or we knew, that traditional smart cities utilize around about 2% of the available data. We were forecasting that NEOM would utilize around about 98% of the available data, which is an exponential increase in the usage of data and the ingestion of data. And so, yes, that was a huge problem. One, first of all, was how do you integrate all of this sensor data from a million different types of devices across multiple sectors, multiple applications, and bring it together in a way that's going to ensure the integrity of that data and the interoperability of the systems that are underlying it. And secondly, just the sheer quantity and volume of it. How are you going to be able to either centralize it or decentralize it, but maintain that coherence and integrity of the data?
Wow, mind-boggling numbers there. And that 2% up to 98% just really paints a picture of the scale of it's not a transformation because it's a new build city, but certainly for existing cities, if they wanted to go on a similar journey, the scale of what would need to change from an instrumentation, data collection, connectivity point of view there. Where there is data, of course, there is value. And where there is value, criminals won't be too far away. And with NEOM, there is this huge attack surface that's developing there. All of the traditional IT, plus all of the OT, the operational technology stuff, and all of the hyperconnectivity that's bringing it all together. Tell me about your role and your approach to cyber securing this cyber city.
Yeah, so I was the chief data integrity officer. So effectively the cybersecurity lead for the tech and digital sector, who was responsible for not only delivering, as you said, the connectivity, that's the 5G to fiber, but all of the hyperscale data centers that we needed to build. And of course, the operating system itself, and the various applications, that citywide applications that were going to be required for the citizens to utilize on a daily basis. And so what we quickly realized was that we were facing, the world's most complicated attack surface. I mean, nobody had ever even had to even think about dealing with something as complex as this. So that required not only a new approach to how you look at data, as we just spoke about, but also how you secure the various aspects of that in an integrated way and in an intelligent way. Just one, how do you detect signals in such a vast data lake? And two, how do you quickly respond to potential incidents in a way that's going to allow the city to continue to function?
So you came up with something that you called cognitive cyber. Tell me a bit more about that.
Cognitive cyber was basically my vision for a sort of fully integrated cybersecurity solution. And really the cognitive comes in because we realized at that time, and this was pre-OpenAI, so this was before the whole current AI hype, was we realized that not only did we need automation, but we needed intelligent automation. And that's where the word cognitive came in, right? So what we needed to do was to say, okay, how do you build a cybersecurity solution that not only monitors the existing huge attack surface that's going on at the moment, is able to ingest this information and sort through the signals and quickly at AI speed identify where there's an incident that's developing, but also how we built preemptive understanding of potential threats before they even happen. So building simulation environments of the entire city and all of the architecture, and allowing the AI to continuously run attack and breach simulations on that digital twin of the city. And then in the end, it was also about how do you intelligently automate governance, risk, and compliance? So, for example, if a 5G mast goes down today, a NOC or a SOC would say, it's okay, everybody will just download their videos a little bit slower because of, we'll go into 4G. Or what if you knew that 5G tower was serving a hospital that was performing life-critical operations? All of a sudden, the context is completely different for your SOC analyst and your NOC analyst, right? So we wanted to try and build that contextualization piece in, which is, again, where the cognitive piece comes in, intelligently understanding data and intelligently executing the actions against it.
So in an AI-powered city, you were using AI-type technologies to ensure resilience in the event of failure or attack. Was there any evidence that the bad actors would also be using AI in order to shape their attacks and to try and evade detection when they did attack you?
Yeah, we were starting to see, not in terms of specific attacks, because obviously we were still in the building phase, as it were, so there wasn't potentially much to really attack, frankly. But what we had been seeing was a burgeoning and sort of building up of more complex AI-enabled types of attacks from attackers. So, for example, I mean, we're all now aware of phishing emails and things like that. But we'd seen already that the phishing attacks that were being utilized by attackers, AI augmented, right from writing the emails to starting to be able to automate how they identified the individuals they wanted to attack. Yes, we were starting to see that already.
While you are now watching NEOM develop from something of a distance, you're still very close to developments of AI and cybersecurity, and it's a fast-moving space, as we've explored already. So fast forward to today, to 2025, what are you seeing at the moment in terms of AI developments? Things like agentic AI and reasoning models and so on seem to be very, very high in the public agenda, I suppose, as we see AI where it surfaces itself. From your point of view, is this also the cutting edge, or is there stuff that's around the corner that we should be getting, excited, concerned, or at least knowledgeable about right now?
Yeah. So I mean, we were all aware of LLMs coming along back when OpenAI first launched. And the thing about large language models at that time were that apart from basically generating text, they weren't really capable of much at all, right? But to your point, in the last 6 to 8 months, a year, we've seen huge leaps in the capabilities of both these large language models and, of course, the advent of agentic AI. And it's opened up a whole new paradigm when it comes to what cybersecurity of artificial intelligence means, particularly that reasoning capability. So it's not been very well advertised, but quite recently, research was done out of a Chinese university where they were able to take two LLMs, one from Meta's Llama models, and one from Alibaba's Qwen models, with the clear objective of seeing whether these AIs were able to self-replicate. So as you know, David, self-replication is a red line for AI and cybersecurity, because that is the potential for these things to start generating copies of themselves and creating uncontrolled populations of AIs roaming around the internet and everywhere. I think the alarming statistic was that the Llama model was successfully able to replicate itself 50% of the time. And the Qwen model was able to replicate itself 90% of the time. Now, this included the ability to examine its environment. So they built an agentic framework on top of the LLM to give it a reasoning capacity and the ability to execute, as it were. Once that was in place, they asked it to replicate, and it was able to reason its way through a very long horizon of something like 30 to 35 steps, what it would need to do to replicate itself, from reconnaissance of the environment to writing Python programs to unlock ports, to understanding how it managed errors. So, okay, this program didn't work. I need to change it and I need to do this instead. So basically reasoning its way through. And it successfully managed to achieve it, like I said, in 90% of the cases. And these are LLMs that are way down the list in terms of reasoning capabilities. They're not by any means sort of top of the range, as it were. And what was also alarming was not only were they able to replicate once, but they were able to order each copy to replicate itself in a perpetual cycle. And if the user set a shutdown signal, before it invoked the shutdown signal, it instantly replicated itself and then allowed the original copy to die, knowing there was another copy out there already on the machine. So very, very concerning, very frightening. And if you think about bad guys, bad actors, taking these open source models, building malware, agent-based malware over the top of it, that's able to penetrate, corporates and, our homes and our devices, and just basically propagate across these networks. We're entering a new era, put it that way.
And there's a definition of there's a few definitions here, but we talk about going viral online. All of a sudden, this takes on a new meaning here when we see self-replicating species. And I use that term deliberately because we're going from the digital and we start to bring in more physical, biological metaphors here. And as we look at how bad actors are able to weaponize AI to do bad things and to self-replicate and to spread and infect, as we say, I guess we need to look at what the good actors are able to do as well. It's the red and the white blood cells. It's all of that sort of stuff. They need to turn to AI to defend themselves. And it's another definition here. It's that of an arms race, a kind of biological, digital, cybersecurity arms race.
Yeah, you're right, David. And this is going to be a huge challenge, because traditionally, you know how cyber works, right? We get all of these events coming in from the network. They go into your SIM, and then the SIM tries to make sense of all of these signals and throws a whole bunch of alerts at you that may be true and may not be. We're going to be exiting that world very, very quickly, because now it's going to be, to your point, having to build a series of defending agents. You could call them the Neo to the Agent Smith of the bad guys, and literally that's how it's going to be. This is going to be a constant evolving battle of good agents versus bad agents. And I think the world of SIMs and things like that, I think is quickly going to be left behind, because frankly, they're just not going to be fit for purpose anymore.
Well, Agent Bostan, I'm pleased that we have you on the right side of the battle here. We'll leave it there for now, Nasser. Thank you very much for sharing that really insightful view of what it is to build and to protect an AI-first city. And we'll see many more AI cities come to be over the next few decades, I'm sure. But also for opening our mind a little bit as to what the next generation, maybe even current generation, if we're frank, of cyber attack and cyber defense look like. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Fascinating. Thanks again to Nasser. For our Zoom In conversation today, I caught up with Saket Modi, CEO and co-founder of Cybersecurity, whose company has been employing AI in different ways to keep organizations' information secure.
AI is the new electricity. I mean, any business which today doesn't utilizes AI will be irrelevant over the course of next few years, because I think in the future, a lot of people ask me this question: will AI replace humans or AI replace businesses? And I think the common answer, very smart answer, which I've heard, which I totally agree with, has been instead of thinking about AI replacing humans or businesses, it's going to be humans with AI will replace humans without AI. And the same is the case with business. Businesses with AI who embrace AI will replace businesses who don't embrace AI. And that's just the reality. So I'm going to start with the premise that AI is something which is not a luxury, but is something which is existential for businesses, small or large. If you don't embrace AI, it's going to be a very, very tough time in the near future. So we're going to start from there. We did a recent study with MIT that we released just last week, where we analyzed over 2,000 ransomware attacks that have happened in the last 2 years. And we found out that more than 80% of the attacks used AI. So not only are hackers hacking into AI, they're now using AI to make the normal attacks that they would do more sophisticated, more frequent for organizations. And that's the reason why protecting AI and protecting attacks via AI becomes a very, very high priority item for most businesses and business leaders and boardrooms.
What have you taken to doing with SAFE to provide these AI-empowered tools to help better protect organizations?
I think, when you are looking at an AI tool, David, today in a company, the big thing is generally they need access to your data.
Yeah.
In order to give you more intelligence, whether it's OpenAI, whether it's Anthropic, whether it's Harvey, whether it's Cursor, they all are very, very incredible tools, but they all need access to your data. The problem of giving access to data is that you don't know how secure those companies are. Because now hackers don't need to hack into you. They can hack into a third party, which is an AI provider, and extract all your data. So if they get hacked, they walk out without almost any issue, because they had a limitation of liability, while you will be the front page of the Wall Street Journal. That is a very scary place to be. And we just started this podcast saying, hey, you cannot go ahead and survive without AI, because if you don't use AI, you will definitely die. It's just a matter of time. So that is exactly where we will go ahead and we will push the whole agenda around saying, how do you go ahead and protect your third parties in a more objective way? So what we've done is, again, not surprisingly, use AI. We have 25 Gen AI agents. And by the way, every agent, we call it by the name of a superhero. So there is a shadow scan. It's like a team of Avengers, Yeah. So it's shadow scan. And you can see every Monday, we do a new release of a superhero Gen AI agent. and we animate the whole thing, using AI, no surprises. And every superhero Gen AI agent has its own capabilities, has its own superpowers. So a good example would be shadow scan. So when you enter the name of a third party, OpenAI, Cursor, Harvey, Anthrop, anything, the shadow scan third party agent goes in and scans those AI companies from the outside. So it looks at their privacy policy, their security policies that they've disclosed online. It sees whether the company has been breached in the past or not. It sees whether there are leaked credentials outside or not. And it does all of that automatically. This is just one example of the 25 Gen AI agents or the 25 superheroes that we have. So this basically allows us to say, hey, you want to onboard a new third party. We will scan the third party from the outside. And then you typically send a questionnaire while onboarding a third party. So based on what we find from the internet, we autofill the responses. So suppose OpenAI was supposed to answer 150 questions. So our Gen AI agent will send an email to OpenAI automatically, so you don't have to do anything. And it basically says out of 150 questions, I've already pre-answered 90 of them, 80 of them, whatever that is. Right? And those 90 or 80 that I've answered will be the ones which were populated intelligently based on what I found about you from the internet. The rest of the 90 of those, suppose you have to answer 150, I've answered 90, so the rest 60 of those, you can now drag and drop any of your internal reports which you've not publicly exposed, a SOC 2 report or a NIST report or whatever that is. Again, our Gen AI agent will parse that. Contract FX is the name of that super agent. It'll go through the actual contract, the actual documents which you might have, and then read that, and then pre-populate the rest of the 90 questions also. It might not be all 90 out of 90. It might sometimes be 20, 30, 40, 50 questions. Then you go and sometimes answer manually as a third party. So again, our Gen AI agent is reading every answer and saying that is it making sense or not. All of this effort of doing the outside-in scans, sending out the questionnaire, receiving the answers, reviewing the answers, then going back to the vendor, all of this used to happen manually. We've automated 100% of that. So we're the first vendor in the world to automate third-party risk management. And third parties can be an AI vendor. It can be any vendor. It doesn't have to be just AI. But we've automated all of this 100%, where it's almost like the Tesla full self-drive, if you ever experienced that, or Waymo, where you just enter the destination and the car takes you there, hands off, right? That's exactly the experience that we've been able to drive with 25 Gen AI agents and collect all that data in an autonomous way. And from there, give risk ratings vendor by vendor, so that you know who to work with, who not to work with. And if you're not working with them, you can give them an explanation on why I cannot work with you, or I need to increase my limitation of liability in the contract and change our contract because the exposure is pretty high if I work with you with the data that I'll provide to you. So all of that is what we do, David, in terms of autonomous third-party risk management. And we're fast becoming the leaders in that category.
We'll have to leave it there. Saket Modi, thank you very much indeed for joining us today.
Thank you, David, for having me.
Thanks again to Saket Modi. Vipul, it seems only a few weeks ago since we were last sat here for episode 4, but even in that short space of time, it seems as though the cybersecurity and cyber attack picture has changed so dramatically.
You're absolutely right. Things have changed a lot. Every day, the threat landscape is increasing. If most of the enterprises are getting hacked, ransomware. In April, we saw M&S, Co-op, Harrods getting cyber attacked. Now, in September, we are looking at Jaguar. And what we are seeing is, in a short span of time, the threat landscape has so matured that threat actors have so matured in using AI and compute to start driving a very tactical attack on enterprises. And if you go on in the dark web, you will see like this attack was being done by a group called Scattered Spider.
Yep.
And what they did was they did impersonation, they did password resets, they did SIM swapping. And these are not scattered gun approach. these are very tactical approach. So if you go on the dark web, you will look at these forums and communities of hackers, non-ethical hackers coming together and targeting industries, verticals, targeting critical infrastructure, and they have got a plan. And that is what has fundamentally changed. Things are changing by the second. And it's not just that which is changing. You as an enterprise can protect your own environment. But how do you protect environment of a third party? And that is where things are fundamentally changing again. We have seen a lot of attacks which have surfaced over the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We saw Renault UK being attacked and a lot of data being stolen. And that was purely third party. We saw Boeing third party attacks on using third party as a medium to infiltrate. We saw a lot of airports getting cybersecurity attacks across Europe through third party and applications. Why? Because the threat actors have found an easy way to penetrate into an amazingly sophisticated and ecosystem. Because if you're looking at M&S, they did everything. They are certified. They are spending millions every year. But how did they get attacked? Not through themselves probably, but because through one of their supplier chain, and that basically means you have got procurement teams to manage contracts, which are heavy-duty contracts, but nobody's ready to safeguard those contracts and govern them. Are these third parties, are my partners, are my suppliers living up to the standard on a back-to-back agreement, but actually doing the job? And that is where fundamentally things are changing by the second. And there's more importance, more emphasis, more reliability on third party driving security in the same way as you would as an enterprise. I think that's fundamentally going to change a lot of factors from a risk perspective. And how do you manage your third parties? We provide a lot of capabilities, and there are a lot of vendors out there. Some are on the top Gartner quadrant as well, who provide a similar capability on identifying how quickly you can use autonomous AI and agentic AI to find the right suppliers and push them, not just contractually, but push them hard. If they don't meet the expectations of security standards and they don't follow them, you don't want them.
And that leans in.
It's a tough ask, yeah.
Well, it is. And you think about even me as an individual, let alone an organization that you or I work for, how many different third parties do we engage with on a daily basis, from a cloud service provider for email to a payroll system to, some other business intelligence system. There are countless third parties, and it is difficult to go out and make sure that not only at the point at which you first engage with them, they met whichever threshold you have for security practices, but to constantly re-engage with them to make sure that they are still meeting those thresholds, and not only on paper, but in practice too. It feels like an almost impossible task.
It is not impossible.
Thank you for telling me that.
That is the important piece to take back, is it's not impossible. There are ways. We support our customers on a daily basis to protect them from these threats. But you need to have the right approach. In fact, we were talking about threats. Just this week, 39 companies, 989 million records have been released on the dark web. And trust me, these all companies are amazingly big. But there are ways to do it. We move into a very sensitive subject of cognitive threats, because right now we are looking at data, AI, and compute together. And what cognitive adds is, it adds the social part of it. When you're creating the social engineering, the social platforms with the digital environment that we have, along with the compute, along with deepfakes, along with the impersonation, then you're creating cognitive disorder. And what that means is that the threat actors are using that to distort the image. They are stealing personal data. It's a funny thing. I'm sure everyone would be doing something of this. And I was looking at this platform and it showed me 10 images, and each one had a fake and a real one. And it says, try to find out which is the fake one.
Oh, yeah.
And I failed almost 9 times. So not just me. Some people failed 10 times because, that is a real one. No, that's a fake one. So how do you define fake versus reality? And that changes the behavior of individuals. That means that you can use deepfake and AI and compute to drive changes into the political environment. And that goes on to reflect on how it is so dangerous for the economy, for peoples. There are a lot of actors, there are a lot of media stars, singers, and they have been hit by deepfake attacks, and their images have been tarnished, and someone has to take responsibility. But it's not that doom and gloom yet, because AI, no matter it's targeting the threat actors, basically can target it against anything, but at the same time, the people who are protectors can protect it using the same methodology and same platforms.
AI versus AI.
AI versus AI.
So what examples do you have? And obviously, again, Saket and Nasser both, whether it's the cognitive AI being used to protect an entire city with NEOM, or whether it is more tactical agentic AIs to analyze third-party risk with various suppliers. Are there any other examples or any bigger ways in which you see AI being used on the cyber defense side to protect and to fight back against the cyber attackers who are also employing AI?
Absolutely, David. It's now, as the threat actors are using psychological methods by cognitive, as we mentioned before, the same methods can be used against them. We are using today AI to do real-time threat monitoring. And this is when I said identifying deep versus fake, because everything has a signature attached to it. We can identify through AI which is an AI-generated image versus not an AI-generated image. We can use AI to drive behavior analysis. And what that means is every threat actor, we're talking about scattered spider and scary hunters or whatever they are called nowadays.
Great names, always great names.
Amazing names, a lot of scattered everywhere, but that's common. But when you start doing behavior analysis, every threat actor or a community has a different behavior, lateral movement, how they go after a certain amount of data, at what point do they stop, at what is the methodology they're using to encrypt data, and everything. So there's a behavior pattern, signatures, patterns of what is being used. And AI is being used right now as protectors to identify those behaviors quickly as possible, like zero-day attacks. Okay, they are silent. I think that's a threat actor. Let's stop it now before it does any damage. And real-time monitoring. Real-time monitoring is looking at all your assets, a lot of infrastructure, using AI to, and we talked about how AI can drive faster identification of data through needle in a haystack. And that is what's happening right now. AI is being used to identify those small signatures, behaviors, real-time analysis, and differentiating between what is fake and what is not fake. And that is fundamentally which is changing. And that's how we can use AI to drive growth, drive security, and drive a peaceful mind. No one plays psychological effects on people. And that is not just harnessing the enterprises and they're losing money. That's also impacting humans, their behaviors, their health. Trust me, that's all happening right now. So there's a lot of stress going on, whether it's machine stress or whether it's human stress.
If there's one thing we know about how hacking groups, bad actors in general, operate, they collaborate extremely effectively. And when a vulnerability is found, whether that's a 0 day, a vulnerability in a particular organization, those hacking groups will very quickly circle on that and exploit it en masse. The cyber defense side, if only it was able to collaborate so effectively, because there are commercial reasons, there might be data protection reasons, there might be all kinds of reasons why it's difficult for a group of organizations, a group of cities even, to all collaborate together for the common goal of reducing stress, of increasing security. Yet when you start looking at entire cities, coming back to what Nasser was speaking about NEOM, this is an entire city that is built on a digital platform that is AI enabled, that is the first cognitive city. That really paints a picture for me of what collaboration could look like at a state level, whereby everyone who is fighting for a common goal, for security, for safety, for their customers, for their citizens, are all using data together to fight back against the bad guys. That sounds easy on paper, but in practice, that collaboration is really difficult, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It is amazingly difficult, especially when we are seeing the deepfake attacks being increased by 37% since 2024. I'm just giving you an example on how difficult it is to manage these. And if you've reached out to a very important point, and I'm a very strong believer of what I'm going to say in a second, which is the concept of SOC of all SOCs. Now, obviously, there are companies, enterprises, governments, everyone globally needs to come together to drive this change. But what that means is we have a lot of frameworks. We have got NIST, ISO 27001, and you can name it and you will have it. Yeah. Now, what those means is it's a piece of paper. Yes, I'm certified and I am based on those standards. And we talked about so many companies in the last just week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks being cyber attacked, and everyone for sure had 27001 and they were NIST compliant, but they still were hacked. Yeah. They're still getting hacked as we speak right now. And why is that happening? Because they have a framework which they adhere to. They have got policies, but they're not connected together with the wider world, what's happening outside. They cannot look at signatures. They cannot look at behaviors which are by threat actors, which is happening now. And threat actors are being engaged on a daily basis. There we saw 12, 13, 14-year-old kids who are hacking right now. So how do you keep on top of it? And that is where the SOC of all SOCs makes absolute sense. Every enterprise, because of the framework and because of the policies, has an ownership to have a cybersecurity framework, have a SOC in place, have all the logs collected, have and monitor them and report back to the government if they are getting breached. But who is basically transferring all this information back and forth? That means a cyber attack which is happening on the extreme north can be reported back to the south and can be just made available to everyone so that every single enterprise is protected. But that is where the state-owned SOC of all SOCs come into play, which connects to all the enterprises, gathers enough data, not all the data, because
yes,
and that's a very sensitive subject of which most of the organizations would say, I don't want to give my precious data because that is my crown jewels.
I don't want my competitors knowing that I am being attacked and potentially been infiltrated because that gives them a competitive advantage. I can understand why that's really, really sensitive data.
But imagine the other way around, that if an enterprise is getting attacked, and the same information on the signatures and it protects every single individual, we won't have an MNS followed by a Harrods followed by a Co-op. It would probably stop at one, and then it won't just ripple itself onto everyone. So you start thinking about joined up approach. You'd give enough data to identify the policies that you're saying you're compliant, you're actually complying against those policies because that's real data coming from your sources, from your cybersecurity platforms. The second is quickly defragmenting that data and giving it to everyone and protecting the whole community for the whole country. So that is the power of SOC of all SOCs. But it's not easy. It's extremely expensive. Enterprises would not have an ability to do it because it would go into millions, billions maybe. And that is where I said state-owned, because that is where the government has to come in and protect their own infrastructure, their assets, their people, their enterprises, their critical infrastructure. And trust me, the wars which we are seeing right now, I won't name them, all the wars which are happening, there is a backup war which is going on, which is a cyber war. In every single war globally, there's a cyber war which is going on, which enables one country to basically state to attack the other state's critical infrastructure. So yes, you're protecting everyone, not just your own sort of crown jewels.
To wrap up this chat for now, Vipul, it strikes me that with all of the different sources of, data, whether that's human-generated, machine-generated, plus all of the different attacks that are coming in from wherever they are in the world, there's a lot there. We need AI just to make sense of all of this, to give us some hope of being able to spot the signal amongst all of the noise. And this brings us back to your formula that you mentioned right at the beginning of this episode. And I'm sure there's a way of refactoring that formula for us to understand how best we can use available compute resources, use the data that we have, our maturity of AI in an organization to be able to fight with our cyber defense smarts, whatever they may be, either internal or working with partners, to fight the attacks that are coming in from the outside as well.
Absolutely. DAC factor of S.
There we go.
That's important. I think all the corporations have to start adapting to this methodology and seeing how much risk exposed they are and how we function together. The governments have to come together to form a plan where they can protect us, the community, together. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your formula and for your insights once again with us, Vipul. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
For our next episode, we're leaving cybersecurity on the ground and instead looking to the skies as we set our sights on non-terrestrial networks. From Telstar to Starlink, we'll lock on to how satellite communications are evolving in cost and capability to complement and even compete with traditional connectivity. That's episode 7 of Impactful Innovation with Commercis. Until then, bye-bye.